Hello, thanks very much for checking out this cheeky video. My name is John Williams. I am the owner and operator of WhatWasThatRadio.com, which is, long story short, a place to discover true modern rock alternative. Nothing older than 2017, 90% of the playlist of which nearly 5,000 songs strong are tunes released since 2020. It's the first time I said tunes in a long time. I just had an incredible chat and a conversation with Alex from the band Ladybird. Man, this band is seriously flipping cool. I'm not going to tell you too much in this intro because we're going to dive into their souls, who they are, and their creations after this intro is done, for goodness sake. So thanks for being here. I'd really appreciate a cheeky like, subscribe, or follow of this YouTube account, or checking out whatwasthatradio.com as well to dive into the two podcasts, the Academy, the community of Wuzzers, and just a wealth of really fucking exciting, galvanizing modern alternative rock. Appreciate you being here. Here's a conversation with Ladybird.
Hello.
Hello, Alex. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you, man?
Not too bad. Are you sat in the car?
I'm in the car, yeah.
Is that the best place for silence and for privacy, or what?
Well, I'm actually on the way to a friend's house, but it also is the best place for silence and privacy.
Amazing. Sweet. Well, I'm in the living room, mate. You're in the car. What kind of car is it?
It's a Ford Fiesta.
Lovely.
Yeah, mate.
Yeah, no, I was all about the Vauxhall Corsa before I moved to Canada 12 years ago, so.
Yeah, mate. Love that. Love that. Keeping
Sweet.
it real.
Well, yeah, it's a pleasure. It's been something that, I mean, I don't know if it was you or if it was Don or Joe or who I was speaking with, you know, here and there on Instagram, but it's a pleasure to finally connect with the band and just get to learn a bit about you.
Yes, mate. It's nice to finally chat. It was probably me. I'm on the socials mostly, so.
All right, sweet. Well, how long have you got then? I just want to make sure, because I could speak to you all night, but I want to make sure that we're courteous with where you want to go tonight.
I'm relatively chill. Yeah, I'm cool, really.
Okay, sweet. Is there any chance you can turn the camera to widescreen mode?
I can try putting it sideways.
That's awesome.
Is that better? Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I'll try and get myself slightly more in the middle. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. Just because the way that it's set up for the stream, I can't help but ask now.
I've lost the noise now.
You got me.
Hello?
You got me. Check.
I got you. I turned the volume down.
All right. Hesitant to lose reception here, but just how messy is your car? What kind of a punk are you?
It's pretty messy at the moment, so I'm a pretty messy punk right now.
What have you got?
I usually try to get on it, but I've been pretty bad recently. I've got the back kind of turns into a bit of a bin sometimes.
Exactly. That's why I'm interested to see what kind of soul you are. Reveal your life to us.
Lots of Tango bottles.
There we go.
Several pairs of shoes. Some recycling. Some curtains. And one of Sam's Dr. Martens.
There we go.
Yeah.
Why have you got curtains in the back?
They're old curtains, and I do a bit of painting for people sometimes. So they're going to be used as like dust sheets.
Perfect. That's what my partner does as well as some painting. She's watching right now, Jodie. Yeah.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you.
Well, this is just a wonderful, you know, there's nothing awkward about this because we don't know each other. So this is how we're getting to know each other. So now that we've learned a little bit about how you keep your car, which is not, there's no negative connotation to that share at all. But this is, welcome to my living room. I've been living with my partner, Jodie, and their 8-year-old son, Harley, for nearly 2 years now. And so I can't take the praise for the 1970s inspired backdrop that you see.
It looks very cool.
Is
that a fish tank as well?
There's the guppies and the neons are in there. Yeah.
Amazing.
I accidentally, we may have got a bit of a bug in there a few weeks back that got rid of 4 or 5, but the rest have survived. So very, very thankful for that. It's always,
thank the Lord.
You never know quite which way Harley might take that as an 8-year-old. You know, if it's going to be a procession of funerals for the fish, or if it's just get it out of here. I don't need to see him again.
Yeah.
There's something quite sobering about having a fish that's got a whatever infection and having to remove it from the tank and then being told, you know, just give it a tap on the head. And it's different to when you catch a trout or a carp or something. Anyway, let's not get into that. It's good.
Sorry, mate.
No, sorries. Your audio probably cut out at the best time. You don't want to hear about dead fish right now. We're going to test that Wi-Fi.
So let's scrap that. Sorry, bud. I'm
as patient as, don't worry about it. You know, we'll get it fixed, then we'll get a flow going.
Yeah, I don't know why it's been so bad. I apologize, everybody, for this very unprofessional way of doing things.
No, this isn't the BBC. Calm down. We're all good.
It's true. That's true. I don't know what's. I think my headphones have died. Let's try and plug you in. Let's see if I can make this work. I'm very sorry.
No, don't be. You said sorry far too many times. You're almost Canadian.
Let's try.
What are you doing? Putting it through the car?
We're on the fly here, you see. This is right. There you go. That's something. I can hear you at least.
All right. Can I see you?
Can you see me?
There we go. Perfect.
Well, hey, I'm back.
All right. Sweet. What did you do? Did you plumb it into the Focus's stereo, or are you just going through the phone without?
Yeah, I'm into the stereo now. I tried just the phone, but it wasn't having any of it. So.
Okay, sweet.
There you go.
Well, that's all good. Okay, right. Well, let's dive in a little bit then. So you must be flipping incredibly excited for 2 Fridays from now when We comes out. And I mean, this has been in the making since day one. You know, it's several years at this point, but you've had a very clear plan, the three of you, at least in what you've shared with press and interviews, in that you didn't want to rush this shit. You wanted to take your time with it. You wanted to get a team around you. You wanted to reshuffle the pack in the team. So where do you think is a great starting point for those that necessarily have only heard a few of your songs to set up what Ladybird's vision is and how you go about creating in the first place?
Yeah, it's been a long process. We came together about early 2016. But I mean, we didn't do anything for a year, and we were just in a room writing songs basically. And yeah, we were all at a point in our lives where we needed something to drive us, something to push us. We're a complicated bunch of people and complicated individuals. And yeah, we really use Ladybird as kind of counseling, really, as a place to sort of express our emotions. And Don to express his view on the world. We did a first EP, which kind of went down quite well, which was Social Potions. Yeah, and then we went on a big tour with Slaves in the end of 2018, and then did our first ever headline tour the next year, and then really only sort of got a year from that point until the pandemic hit. But ideally we would have had the album kind of ready to go at 2019, but I don't think any of us are really in the place to sort of pull it together at the time. And certainly the songs that we had, we didn't feel good enough or representative of our we didn't best represent Ladybirds, for more sort of who we are, and just musically, I think we had more exploring to do. So yeah, I mean, we kind of, because of the pandemic, and Sam's wife at the time, Tilly, or wife now, was pregnant at the time. So we kind of started this process where me and Joe were doing quite a lot of writing and then just sending it across to Sam, and Sam would do the lyrics and send it back, and then suddenly it was a song. I was always quite amazed by that, how loose an idea we could give Sam and what he would then be able to turn it into. From that, I was amazed, and many songs off the album. There's some older ones, like Factory Fool and Infants, which were written around the same time as Social Potions. yeah, but there's many. There's sort of, I'd probably say, I think I counted 6 or 7 on there that we pretty much wrote separately, and we kind of got the drums of the demos done, and then the pandemic hit, sort of end of February, and yeah, I was it was quite nice, really, because I then spent sort of like about a month doing all the demos for the album, just in my living room, recording the guitars and kind of writing all the music to the drums that Joe had laid down. And that was a really, really enjoyable time for me. But yeah, we kind of expanded the sound, really. There's an actual bass on the record now, and we've never had a bassist in the band. I always kind of did that split signal guitar bass vibe. But yeah, I mean, and what's come out the other end is quite a cohesive album, I would say, certainly in my eyes. Although it's kind of pieced together with lots of different stuff from different time periods and different places, different inspirations. So I think there's quite a wide range of styles within there. Although I think it still sounds like one record. That's what I was conscious of, trying not for it not to be too crazily different.
I just want to nerd out a little bit on the split rig, because the band that I used to be in was a 3-piece, and we had bass players, and we just didn't find the right groove with someone. You just got to find that sort of unspoken language and word that you have, and then it's really clicked in. And what Jordan, the guitar player, used to do was, and I just hit the drums, so I don't know the technical of it, but the way I always describe it in interviews, and you're the first person I've spoken to where actually this is probably going to grasp a bit, where I'd say, well, you're not getting the actual staccato initial hit of the note, but he's splitting the signal so that you get the what. So it's that split second afterwards, and it adds that texture that then it blew people away. Where is this extra sound coming from? How did you split your rig, just from a nerdy standpoint?
From a nerdy standpoint, I could talk for hours on this. So
we've got all day, so we're good.
I basically I've got one line in, and it goes into a splitter, which then splits 3 ways. So I've got my main guitar channel, which is then split between two amplifiers, and then I've got a bass signal, which then goes out into an octave pedal, and that drops the signal and then goes into a bass amp, and then I've got a delay signal. So that's a wet only delay signal, which is kind of like 50 milliseconds or something. So that sits behind, and I can use that as kind of just an extra texture and extra layer. Because Sam or Don, or whatever he likes to call himself.
I was going to say, just for those that might be confused, Sam and Don are the same person, just for those in chat watching. Yeah.
They are, yeah. He originally did that because he was a teacher at the time, and he didn't want his students to know who it was and who was in the band or not. So there's a little slide thing, but yeah. And then I got delay signal. So because Sam's playing organ quite a lot, I'll then be the only guitarist, and I'm the only guitar and bass within the band then. But yeah, I've always tried to. I was using a POG 2 for quite a while, which is like an octave generator from Electro Harmonics, and that it was good, but it did the octave thing, but it was never, like you say, it was a bit more like woof woof,
yeah,
rather than being quite punchy. I've recently changed it to a Digitech pedal, a Digitech drop, which just drops full octave, and the tracking on that is incredible. There is some latency, but like to the human ear, basically impossible to hear. I think it's about 5 or 7 milliseconds maximum. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and I love playing guitar, but I love the power that comes with just a little switch of my foot, and suddenly this roaring sound comes in, Yeah, it's fun to experiment with, but also going into the album, I was, because I didn't have any of my gear at home. I only had a bass at home, so I just used a bass, and because I was just sort of allowing my, the boys had given me quite a lot of free reign, just to kind of write the music really, to basically all of it. I mean, most stuff was written, but I had to play it all in. So because of that, quite a lot of bass lines ended up coming out of it. So what you hear on the album is much more of a sort of a traditional guitar, bass, drums, and vocals, traditional band setup, than what it was originally. Yeah, it's that's kind of the journey of that.
Yeah, it's interesting how that can lend and bend into the songwriting process, because for me, for sure, one of the standout points of this band is that it's got that particular urgency with your composition of the guitar part. And because you are the only guitar player, that in turn makes it shit tight, because then there's no other guitar player to bounce off of that might go out of rhythm. It's all down to you. So then that's what's so interesting about the fact that, and if anyone watches any music videos and stuff, you'll see Don, Sam, Mr. Teacher Man, you'll see him there with his organs. So it's an interesting setup. You know, you don't necessarily, I didn't expect to see that when I first discovered Social Potions and Spoons. I mean, Spoons was the big one, big time, with Weatherspoons. And for those that aren't aware, is a pub chain over in England. And a lot of people get very drunk there. But that was what stood out to me, was like, okay, right, there's some freedom here in that there's an organ. And sometimes it's put into records and you don't actually see it on stage. And that's I don't want to get too benign of a point there, but it was very refreshing to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you say about the urgency, and I hadn't really ever sort of considered that, in terms of, I am the only guitar player, so you know, any guitars that are on the record, I mean, Sam does do a little bit, but it's more kind of extra lead parts, that kind of fit with him, being able to sing and stuff at the same time, you know. But I'm a mixture. I've got my half, you know, I've got 1 foot in the rhythm section, which is the kind of bass side of it, you know, and I've got 1 foot in the melodic side of things in terms of playing the guitar. So I've enjoyed that challenge, you know, and I'd only ever played guitar in bands and only ever written, and I'd never really ever considered doing that, you know. It was only when Sam basically demanded it of me. It was like, right, we're not going to have a bassist. I want you to do this. And I'm like, okay, cool. gives me an excuse to buy lots of music gear.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's I like the guitar parts to be right in your face. I like it to be intense. I like intense music. Stuff that's, you know, really up in your grill, as it were. Yeah,
I liked that when in a band I used to be in was called Stinging Bell, but I liked that as we were going through that early stage, it was, we don't need to have extra bodies. What I like about it, and what I like about your band, is that it allows the listener to truly try and figure the fuck out what's going on. Like, where are these extra musicians coming? People just presume that everything gets layered up. But then when they see you live, it's like, where's that coming from? And I had an example when we were playing at a festival, and one of our friends was like, you might look, to seem professional, because we were the opening band of the whole weekend, and it was our first festival. And our friend Chris said, look, I don't want to get paid. I'm not looking for a free ticket, but you might need a guitar tech. What if something goes wrong? And Jordan's like, I'm playing 2 shitty Squires through all this stuff. Nothing's going to go wrong. He's like, things could go wrong. Look, let me come and back up the second one. And people after the show said, is that your bass player playing off stage? Like some sad poor asshole that we didn't want to be on stage with us, just over there, boom, 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 boom. But that's what I love about bands that can have this kind of setup, is that for me, as someone that dissects the shit out of music, I'll listen to Leave Me Alone or Baby 30, 40 times and just try and dissect every layer, every energy, every lyric, and then how it all welds together and everything in between. And that's what I really like, and what I was so intrigued to dive in and discuss with you. So if Don or Mr. Teacher Man said to you all those years ago, we don't need this is what you're going to do, how did the band first formulate? And you were saying you've been in previous bands. What's your journey then? Alex, what's your journey to being a guitar player in Ladybird?
Well, firstly, it was kind of Sam's Mr. Teacher Man's sort of
So,
master. No, I like Mr. Teacher Man. We'll call him that.
okay.
It was kind of his. It was his brainwave, really. He had been living in London and studying music, but had recently got into Buddhism, a Buddhism called Nichiren Buddhism, and he kind of had the mission to move back to Kent, which is where we all met and grew up, specifically Tunbridge Wells, which is where I am now, to kind of, sort of spread his Buddhism in some ways, but also with that, he wanted a sort of creative outlet. So, and basically just had two people in mind, which was me and Joe. And I mean, he didn't have any sort of plan B. He just was just hoping that we'd say yes, and thankfully we did. I was actually in another band at the time as well, and that was kind of much. I'd never played this music this heavy. I'd always quite enjoyed music that heavy, but I would always kind of played much more kind of indie stuff. Think kind of Maccabees-esque.
Right.
So lots of layers, lots of like
Very intricate. Yeah. You know your scales.
Yeah, exactly. That sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, in terms of my own journey, I started playing guitar when I was 5. I got given a guitar by my dad for my first good school report, which was my only good school report. All of them after that were dreadful, because he gave me a guitar. And I was like, all of this school shit bullshit. Yeah, and then I just kind of grew up, playing and learning, and I got to about 14, and one of my best friends was playing guitar as well. We started a band, and then just kind of played on the local scene, really, for, I don't know what that is, 6 or 7 years, until me, Sam, and Joe came to be. Yeah, it was a funny story, actually. Sam was actually at a station just up the road from where we were all from, at like 5 a.m. going to a Buddhist meeting, and bumped into Joe on the platform, who was coming home from a rave in London.
There you go.
and kind of like a clashing of worlds there. But yeah, he just kind of like put the idea to me. Joe was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And we'd been around, and Sam used to be in a band with Isaac, who's from Slaves, and my old band used to support his band, so we'd kind of been, in the circle for a good long time, really, since I was 16, so it was kind of sort of 5 or 6 years before we actually started, and then once we did start, it felt like the most natural thing I'd ever done, to be honest. It kind of washed away all memories and everything else of every other band. It felt like the most natural thing. The music came most naturally, more naturally than it ever had done before, really. And that was, it's obviously really exciting. It's I don't know how to describe it, really. It's just like, when you're in rhythm, you're in the zone, and it just kind of pours out of you. And a bit like I said earlier the other day, a bit like I said earlier, we all kind of needed it, so it poured out of us because we were ready to let it all out.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm intrigued as to, you've referenced that 2 or 3 times, that there were some difficulties. So I'm not someone that asks questions and expects answers. I like to supply some context that then maybe produces an atmosphere that you're comfortable to dive into that or not. But there's a reason why I'm in Canada, And that's because and by the way, what I wanted to say before I forget, and we'll come back to this, is that I spent a lot of time in Tunbridge Wells, a lot of time in Frant and Wadhurst and all in between, because that's where my grandparents were from. So every summer I'd be up in and around Frant and Tunbridge. And I have lots of fond memories that I've discussed over the years for those that have followed and listened to me on the radio and with What Was That and the change away from commercial radio, in that I would be going with grandma to the Tunbridge Wells shopping centre, every 4 or 5 months. And she'd be like, right, you've got a choice. You're going to get a new sweater or I'm going to buy you another album. What's it going to be? And I'd always spend hours in HMV or Woolworths just being like, okay, what's it going to be? And so I knew that shopping centre like the back of my flipping hand.
Those shops are there anymore.
Is it there anymore or not?
No, Woolworths liquidated.
Oh yeah, that's gone a long time ago. Yeah.
And HMV basically doesn't exist apart from online now, because of the state of physical record sales and CDs and streaming and all that. But that's really cool. That's we've got a little connection there.
Yeah, just before I forgot to mention that, because I do want to talk about the forum and the smaller venues there as well, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But I think firstly, the quick context behind me, and this is going to seem quite aloof and shared very easily because I've spent 20 plus years on it. But when I'm from Malmesbury in Wiltshire, originally near Swindon. And I went to primary school in Crudwell, which I still tickles me because Canadians don't realize until I tell them that crud means it's just slang for shit. So I went to a shit primary school. And at that primary school, sorry, mum and dad, but at that primary school, I was abused when I was 10 years old and never saw who it was in the bathroom. We were getting the bathrooms fixed. And so I was attacked from behind and woke up in a toilet bowl. And I spent years, and I know that's quite, Jesus Christ, that's just come out, but it's something that I'm comfortable in sharing now. I suppose I could have said trigger warning or something, but for years it was difficult for me to walk around in the rain. I didn't like my hair getting wet. I didn't like being underwater. And I went through my teenage years just trying to really hop, skip and jump into all these different energies. Am I a prog rocker? Am I emo? Am I classic rock? What am I? And just shape shifting through trying to find what my personality was. I've been making radio demos since I was 7 years old, seriously applying to radio from 11 years old, and exhausted all opportunity and decided that when my grandmother died, who was originally born on the island here, I'm on Vancouver Island, right over on the west coast of Canada. When she passed away 14 years ago, we had a little week getaway in Toronto. Mum, dad, and I went. Brother and sister were away or at school or whatever. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to come and backpack here this summer. And then I fell in love with the island. And I thought, this is the place where I need to go and get out of England, which I love. And I miss to an extent. But at the same time, it can be very claustrophobic. And certainly at the time, 12, 13 years ago, the conversations about mental health were nowhere near as open and as warm as they are in this day, which is wonderful. And so I felt I just needed to get out and fucking figure it out. And then skip forward 12 years, I left my job in commercial radio right at the start of the pandemic because I was just seeking more growth. I don't like standing still. I don't like feeling like I'm checking in, checking out. And that's why I thought, well, fuck it. This is the time to do something crazy. I'll step out. And that's not to say that it's been easy, man. Like I had a great wage before. I had great healthcare. I don't have that now. But I'm not afraid of failing. And so I think that's important context that you understand a bit about me before you share what you're comfortable in sharing. But you said 2 or 3 times now that you wanted to spend a few years just figuring your shit out and figuring out what you want to do. You've opened up to Mr. Teacher Man and his practicing, his religions, his life shape. You've opened up into Joe in, I don't know if he's going to 24-hour raves anymore, but what would you like to lean into that with and how? And it's comfortable paramount to you.
Yeah, I mean, we've always I don't know, prided ourselves on being as open as possible, and the reason we wanted to be in a band was to spread this was to spread a message and was to share with people and make it okay that to talk about these things. So it's great that we that we can we can go in this direction. I mean, certainly for me, I mean, my dad died when I was 12. And then my mum remarried to my stepdad, who's an amazing man. And then he died when I was 21.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So, so, I mean, I've kind of, ever since 12 years old, trying to been sort of figuring out what the fuck life is and like what's going on. And you know, I realize now that that my I realize now how significant, you know, that what that did. And it's interesting that you mentioned about, you know, sort of shape shifting, and you know, trying out different, you know, going through lots of different phases and trying out lots of different things, trying to find an identity. You know, I did that. I did that a lot. I did that for years. I still do. I very much struggle with my own sense of self, and my own identity, and who I really am. And I think ultimately deep down, I'm getting there, but for a long time, I haven't actually liked who I am. I've never really known why I don't like who I am. But I think it's because, you know, it's incredibly isolating. And I was, you know, I was in my first term at secondary school, which I'm actually right next door to, funnily enough, at the moment, which is a boys' grammar school. So you have to, you know, for people in Canada who might not know, it's you know, you have to pass a test basically to get in. So it's quite lots of intelligent young men, boys, and I lost my dad in the second term. I think, you know, he went into hospital about a week after I started that school. You know, so to be in that place for so long, you know, to be in that place while everybody's, you know, sort of formulating or forming friendships and finding their place within a community at school. I felt different. I felt like I was on the outside, kind of looking in, or I never felt part of anything. Never felt connected to anyone really, and I still suffer that. Suffer that to this day. Struggling with feeling like to feel love really, and feel care and to feel connected to people. You know, so I consider my teenage years to be quite traumatic. My school let me down a lot. I mean, you know, they kind of gave me one counselling session and asked me maybe once after my dad had died that how I was. I then proceeded to be a fucking idiot at school. Not an idiot, but, you know, misbehaving. You know, and any you know, in today, you know, in the world today, like you said, which is amazing, how much more understanding people are of mental health and how aware they are. I don't think my school considered once that my bad behaviour was down to the fact that my dad had died, and that I was screaming for help. Really, you know, I was screaming for help, and I was trying to get attention. I was trying to get people to notice me, while also kind of thinking that I didn't want to be seen. I just wish everyone would fuck off, you know. So, you know, I was still we were still very young. I'm still very young. I'm only 28. But, you know, 28 and 21 is kind of a different, is definitely a different age. And I've done a lot of work in those six years since I've been in Ladybird. And yeah, it was kind of the first time I really felt like I had brotherhood with other individuals, you know, that I felt like I was a part of something, and that I could, and that it was my kind of soapbox to be able to express that in some way, whatever it might be. I know Sam, you know, I don't want to speak for the other boys. We've all suffered. Joe's kind of suffered most of his trauma while in the band, which has definitely been challenge at times. You know, because obviously all the, you know, that comes first every time. So Ladybird in many ways has been a battle for all of us, because not only is it a space that we feel like we are connected and that we have brotherhood, but also it's really challenging because you are facing all your biggest demons within it. And you know, and what it comes to represent in your life becomes something other than just a sort of music making. You know, it becomes a kind of philosophy of life that if you're not living by it, you can feel right out of kilter. But yeah, like I said with earlier, Sam, he had picked up this Buddhist practice, and he still practices, and actually Joe practices now as well. I did practice for a little while. But yeah, I mean, as a band, our philosophy kind of came from that. And there's one specific sort of, I don't know what it is, teaching, or I don't know. It's a philosophy, I suppose. It's called the Human Revolution, which is kind of, you know, if you break it down, if we all work on ourselves, and we all work to create a happy individual, which is all we can control. All we can control is ourselves. We can't control our influence, but if our minds are set on bettering ourselves and making ourselves happier, and therefore exuding the happiness, that you can influence others to do that, have that journey for themselves as well, you know. The idea being ultimately that world peace is possible. Whether it is or not, I don't really worry about that. I think what I take from it most is that we have the control to change our own lives, and to grow and to be better human beings and happier human beings, whatever happy is, because all of these things are quite undefinable anyway. But yeah, so you know, we were all seeking something, which I kind of still can't put my finger quite on it. But that's kind of the atmosphere that Ladybird was born out of. That was kind of the catalyst. And I think, you know, as much as anything, you know, why does anybody start playing music and you know, join bands and write songs? You know, it's a form of expression. It's a way to let out. It's a way to let out what you're dealing with, you know, or what you're going through, or, you know, whether it's, and the songs might not even be anything to do with necessarily your traumas or whatever, but you know, it comes out and you're playing, you know, as a drummer, how cathartic it is to hit a drum hard. And I think that's why Joe's such a crazy drummer, you know. He's got a lot of energy to let out. And maybe why our music can be so urgent at times, because we're all, you know, scrambling to exist at times, and without those, you know, those difficult things, those situations in which our existence was challenged, you know, I don't think we'd be here in the first place. So, you know, you sort of have to pay your dividends to those situations, as much as they're traumatic, and they've kind of changed the whole course of my life and how I deal with relationships and friends and how I feel about myself. I also wouldn't have made the music without it. So you've got to find gratitude in all of this.
Yeah, it's trying to harness the negative of the past and turn it into positive of the present moment and the future. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I have been saying to myself and to anyone around me the last 7, 8, 9 years, is that I'm trying to take the bullshit and take ownership of it, and then draw power from it to inspire to move forward. You know, my family, and also to speak to that wonderful share, which is, that's what's drawn me to it. And this comes up in pretty much every conversation. It's the authenticity of the artist. we've had all these shows over the years tell us what a pop star is and what we should be gravitating towards and what's great, and et cetera, et cetera. But the fact of the matter is, human to human, singular to singular human experience is going to go, I either believe this motherfucker or I don't believe this motherfucker. And when I first heard of you three, and also just to speak to Joe's drumming, I adore compact drummers because they're explosive. They're like the little, they're like the Duracell bunny. It's like, you know, they're just everything in that little, like Joe is just, you never see his arms go too high. They're never too far from his body. It's like his elbows are concrete stuck to his flipping rib cage. He plays so explosively in that compact stance. I adore it. But that all speaks to how you've got to this point, and that's what's drawn me to you, is that I don't hear three individuals that are punching above their weight and trying to impress or trying to get to that next step of who am I and what's my identity. I hear people that are very assured in that moment of who they flipping are. And that's what I joke about with my parents when we were speaking on Zoom just this past weekend and talking about when they came and saw me when they could, several years back. And I would be walking around. We went to a hockey game, ice hockey, but don't say that here. Just say hockey, okay? Ever in North America, just say hockey. Don't admit to playing on grass at school. Don't mention that, okay? Don't mention that to anyone. Just say, I love hockey, and they'll go, what kind? You go, on the frozen stuff, and they'll love you. Anyway, but the thing is I remember taking my parents to a hockey game and being like, oh, I'm reading Eckhart Tolle. I just got back from a trip to India to go to the Kumbh Mela, and I dived into that sort of intrigue as well through some different workshops I'd gone on to try and get over certain parts of the dark past. And I remember saying to my dad, like, I am so more present now, Dad. You know, I'm way more in the moment. Look, this fuse ain't going to light very quickly. And then 2 minutes later, the elevator or the lift, pardon me, having lived here for 12 years, the lift, the boot, the trunk, whatever you want to call it, don't put me in it. It wouldn't open. And I was like, why is this taking so long? We're going to be late for the game. And he's like, oh, we're very calm these days, are we, son? Yeah, but you're trying to practice what you preach, right? And that's what I've always said to people is that, with going back to what you said 20 minutes ago about you've got to get these thoughts out. I could talk the hind legs off a donkey. If I don't release what's in my mind, it's going to start to create some very putrid energy that seeps throughout my body and my mind. So I've got to release it. Talk, or write, but mostly talk. And through all of those things, that's why I say, well, look, the only way I'm going to learn something is by stumbling and falling and picking it back up again. From, oh, well, this is what I just said. Well, practice what you preach then. Hold yourself accountable. But it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years and years. And it's never going to fully be reached. And I don't want to reach complete happiness, as fickle as that might sound, because I don't want to take my foot off the proverbial gas or accelerator pedal, just so we can, again, the two difference there, gas, accelerator. But and with the song Infants, that was one that in the press release you were saying, right, well, fuck school. I'd love to dive into now getting all that context from you, where some of these messages come from with Bloodsuckers and focusing on We and the new album, the debut, for those that have recently joined. It's out in just a couple of Fridays' time. What are you most proud of with this record?
Oh, am I allowed to smoke on here? Is it acceptable? Are we PG in this gaff or not?
I'm not sure what the Twitch rules are. Let me Google that quick. Can you smoke on stream Twitch?
You know, it's a sign of how comfortable I'm feeling and how much I'm committed to this conversation.
No, I appreciate it. This is what, and this is, to be frank with you, Alex, this is what I love, is when we reach that sort of 50-minute point, and in theory, the person I'm speaking to is like, okay, this guy's not a fucking idiot. Let's chill. Yeah. I think that's the most polite way I can refer to myself. It says here, according to Twitch rules, they're allowed during a stream as long as the person indulging in is of legal age, and you're in a legal state or country that you reside in. So yeah, you can go for it. If
I'm good to go.
If I do get flagged, this stream has been made aware to those who come in and watch it that it's for adult audiences, so that should cover our backs a little bit there.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll try not to. I hope I don't get you in trouble.
No, as long as you're not waving it up in the front and saying, everyone go run and buy. No,
I'm not going to be advertising smoking. It's merely a hobby of mine.
But yeah, no, I quit drinking 3 years ago, which has been life-changing and flipping awesome, but very much still smoke, and very much still like going on my 420 steps, as I like to call them. And it's all very much legal over here. But yeah, but referencing back to you, what are you, because there's a lot you could unlock with that. It seems to me that during the pandemic, okay, you're going to the school of, I'm going to produce myself now, we're going to record this myself now. So there's many angles of which could be a favorite, but what's the first thing that comes to mind that you're just proud of during this whole process?
What am I proud of? See, this is it's a difficult thing for me because I don't feel very proud of a lot of stuff I do. Feeling good about things that I do is a massive part of my journey, you know. So what am I proud of? I mean, I'm proud that we made it, you know. The amount of challenges we had as a band, individually, and you know, as a collective. It's pretty, you know, we're on the edge most of the time, you know, and I think, you know, you kind of you hear about a lot of bands, and actually that's kind of always the case, you know. You're on a knife edge most of the time. So the fact that we even got there and we were able to write as good of music as we did, to then record as good of music as we did, and to be speaking the message that we always wanted to speak, and to, you know, I like to think of it as a place that you can go and be angry, and a place that you can go and feel happy, or sad, or whatever emotion you're feeling. That's the beautiful thing about music, isn't it? Or specifically in albums. It is like going in another room, and you know, it's like going to a different space. And I mean, we're yet to find out, you know, what fans and other people think of the album, and you know, their experiences. But I know for me it was very healing. It was, you know, it was a very healing process, very distressing process at times, you know, very triggering and a difficult process at times. But you know, I think anything that's kind of worth creating, or anything that's been created and that's worth sort of, I don't know how to put it. It's kind of, you know, it's worth it, I suppose. You know, going through all those difficulties, to then sit back and listen to this album you've made, and be like, yeah, I did that, you know, and I stuck at it, and I made it happen. We made it work, and that's a really wonderful feeling, you know, to hear my life on record in many ways. Yeah.
Did you ever have people say to you that you can't achieve perfection as a kid, or in and around that? I got told a lot, and even still to this day, where people misconstrue my energy and say, you're never going to reach perfection. You can't. They don't quite understand sometimes the near self-takedown drive I have to keep growing and keep doing things. And that was something that I encountered a lot, was you will not reach that level. And I've never subscribed to perfection. I've always subscribed to just getting underneath that bar, having it in sight, and I'll keep chasing you until we'll see how close we can get, but we can't get it. I'm just intrigued if that's something that's been in and around your world as well, the way that you speak and the way that you seem to just really hold yourself to very high standards that might in turn cause upset.
Yeah, I think I've always been quite a perfectionist, and I've always had, as much as I suffer with kind of lack of self-identity, I also very much know what I want from something, and it's very innate for me, you know. It's I don't even know what my level of perfection might be.
Yeah.
But once I'm working on it, I kind of know what I want out. I know what I want to get back from it. I mean, you know, like I said about, you know, my school was very sort of grades based. No real sort of creative side. The creative arts and were not really encouraged. So, you know, growing up in my teenage years, I was always below that. I was below people's expectations, I suppose. I was always told that if Alex just concentrated, or if Alex did this or Alex did that, he could just do a bit better, you know. And that opinion from other people was always there for me for quite a long time. So, you know, along with feeling a bit lost in the world, I think that's kind of always, I've tried to find my own corner of the world, you know. Tried to find a way to represent me within all of this mess, because I felt like I've been on the edges at times. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, because I've never really thought about it in terms of like setting my own bar. I've never really considered there to be a bar to me in some ways, which can be a good thing, but there must be deep down a kind of level of which I kind of strive to create what I think is what I want to create. I think this album musically is as close to as what I've wanted to put out there as I can sort of muster. You know, it's as close as I can get right now anyway. I don't know what the future looks like, and I don't know what future music looks like. But right now it's relatively close to kind of what I always imagined in some ways.
Yeah, life is a delicate balance. It's, you know, for me, I suppose a part in what sort of inspired how much I just tear things apart to investigate was that my dad did that. Like, he was in the Met Police, and even though when I was growing up he was out of the police and driving buses and coaches and whatnot, but I would always be in the car with him, and he'd be rattling off 58 things a minute. Like, you got to tell me 7 things in 4 seconds, son. Blah, 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 blah. So I always was so fascinated by the detail of everything. And that's what I've really dived into the last 15, 20 years, is trying to understand every little nuance, every little layer of how I work. What is it? Where is this coming back from? Where is it coming back to? What is this coming from? What is that going to? And just really trying to dive on what are the experiences that have shaped me and molded me. Like, I mean, moving in with my partner Jodie and her son Harley, who's 8, has shown me so much growth the last 2 years, because it's brought me back to how dinner time was at home for me, or how it was to go and hang out with other friends and family with the kids or whatever. And it's amazing how many little fucked up control instances impact me now in my mid-30s that I'm still addressing and moving through. I love how fluid it is in this home. I love how open conversation is, and how there aren't rules. Otherwise, you'll get your elbow smashed on the dining table and things like that. And to be clear, mum and dad never did that to me. That was uncles and aunts and grandparents. I love my parents very dearly. In case they're watching, they're probably not. I think the one thing they don't get yet is Twitch. But if it's purple, they think it might be me involved in it, because that's what my branding is. Anyway, that's the delicacies of life, is trying to keep taking those lessons and that's why I ask you, like, have you imposed that maybe you haven't connected with subconsciously a certain bar or level? And I only ask that not to infringe on your privacy, but to plant a seed that maybe there's other ways in which I'm learning things from you. You might go, well, let's try and search respectfully and safely for this, to try and figure out more on your journey of self-understanding and grounding. And again, not that I said this before, but to be clear, I'm not a counselor. I'm just, I just love talking about this stuff.
No, it's interesting. I you know, Ladybird is conversations like this. Ladybird are very common. We don't, you know, we book our rehearsal room and regularly spend more time talking philosophy than we would playing music at times, whether to our detriment or not. You know, we probably shouldn't have been spending £10 an hour on a rehearsal room if we were just going to chat. But there you go. You live and you learn, don't you?
Well, it's a different energy, though. If you went down to the pub and had that sort of chat, I mean, I don't think you'd do that, number one, but
No.
it's if you went anywhere else to have that chat, it's not got the same energy of which you walked into the room of, which is this is band chat, and that mental side is just as paramount. So
yeah,
chat
it's
away.
very true. It's very true. It's very true that you raise a good point in that you're creating an environment, or you're engaging in an environment that's encouraging that conversation. The conversation probably wouldn't be the same, like you say, if you'd gone to the pub or you'd gone around a mate's house or whatever over a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I would like to go back to what we were touching on half an hour ago, which is just the scene in around Tunbridge Wells. I don't know if you're familiar with Kid Capici from Hastings.
Well, yes, yeah, I know Kid Capici. Yeah, we met them a couple of times. Yeah.
Had a great chat with them a few months ago and spoke a little bit about Hastings, and obviously that shaped a lot of their record for those that have heard it in just a working man's town energy. And I'm fascinated by, you know, I remember, not that I had the chance to go to shows when I was at my grandparents', but I went to 2 or 3 shows at the Forum in my teenage years. And the biggest thing that I would love What Was That Radio to get towards is eventually opening a youth venue. That's not to say that there aren't youth venues in this city. There's one in a city of 200,000 people. But I would love to get to a point where, like, part of the What Was That Radio business is it's a radio station that runs 24/7. I'm live for 3 hours weekdays, which is like 7 to 10 p.m. your time. There's a podcast that splits in 2. There's the Conversation With, which you're a part of now. And these chats are very gentle and just people discovering, and I'm learning about you, you're fucking learning about me. It might be half an hour, 2 hours. Some have gone 3 hours. Some have gone 3.5 hours. It is what it is. Then there's the Arts Academy, which is everything I earn is split 50-50. So half goes to me, my love of chocolate and buying dark clothing. The other half goes towards the academy and the people that support me in the community in the first place, whether that's paying out to take care of someone's rent when they lost their job in the pandemic, for a pet to get surgery, for Miles to go and get camera gear because he always wanted a black room. Or then with the Arts Academy, it's where I've turned to musicians that I've got to know over the last 12 years here and said, look, you've lost income, you're a registered teacher. I can't promise you students, but would you be willing to be a teacher for the academy? And people that apply for that, and I've given out 1 grant so far and hopefully another 4 or 5 by the end of the month, because I earned $15,000 in my first year through donations from subscribers. And while I'm not going to earn that much as it stands at this point this year, I'm only in my 18th month of this, so that it's not too big a stress on that, even though money is a stress, but not too big a stress. But not too big a stress. Then it is basically where I say, right, you want to learn guitar? Here's Brett Smith Daniels. I'm going to give you 6 hours paid guitar with him over Zoom to start with. There's the money. I'm like the controller in Thomas Tank Engine. I connect the train, you're out, see ya, that's it. And what I would love to work towards is having an actual physical location of a school, and also further having a venue built into that. Because I remember growing up in Malmesbury, there was the youth club at the bottom of Tetbury Hill where I lived, which is now Dyson Central. Dyson Hoovers is all of where I grew up. All the school I went to, the farmland I ran around gallivanting about as a kid. The only time it fucking snowed, that's all Dyson now. The sleighing, that's all Dyson's land.
Crazy.
But there was nothing in Malmesbury. There was barely anything in Swindon. There was nothing in Cirencester, really. What was the Tunbridge Wells scene like, and how did that, what sort of role did that play in your evolution as a musician?
We definitely wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here if we hadn't had that. If I hadn't had a place to go to, if we hadn't had a physical location to go and be able to be myself, you know, Jason Dorman, who is who's the founder and owner, effectively, and you know, it's still independent to this day. 1993 it started, so it's 28 years old now. No, older. Christ, yeah. It's time flies by, doesn't it? I remember when they did the 20th anniversary, and I was like, wait a minute, that's like 8 years ago. You know, if I hadn't had that, I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing now. I don't think I'd have the confidence to do what I'm doing now. I don't think I would have ever grown the belief. And if you're not around people that accept you and tell you it's okay to be who you are, and that tell you you're going to make mistakes, you're not going to get it right all the time, but you're welcome here, and you can come here anytime, and you can be as involved or as little involved as possible, as you'd like. Jason's always said to me, you want to learn the sound, just come and ask me, we'll teach you. If you whatever you want to do, you can do it here, as long as you're willing to work hard, and they want to, they'll give you the chance. As a musician, where my goal certainly, and I'm sure a lot of musicians, is to play live and to get up on a stage and present to people you right in that moment. And like you said about that sort of, singular person to singular person experience, which is what live music is all about, and is why it is so sacred. If I hadn't had that, I think back to my first time I walked on that stage. The band, we were shit. We were so bad, the band I was in at the time. But it didn't matter. That's not the point. The point is to come here and get it wrong, and get it and work it out. Find what you're doing, and ultimately have fun, enjoy yourself, and express yourself. So with that in mind, I've done a lot of growing up in that building. I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. I've met swathes of different people, from varying different types of people, and it's taught me diversity in that way, and it's taught me to not be scared to get it wrong, and to just go for it, Jason's said to me, you're a creative person, go and create, go and use this space however you want to do it. And everybody else there was always kind of on that vibe, they were always, Tunbridge Wells is, quite a kind of middle class, not I don't know how to even describe it. It's kind of hard. It's quite, conservative and, whatnot, and kind of not the place you'd necessarily expect to find somewhere like a forum, like an arts community centre. But maybe it is. Maybe that's created out of as a kind of can't find a word. Because of where it is, it needed to be formed to give people to give all the outcasts, to give all the weirdos and the strange people that feel lost in this place, that aren't going to do an hour commute on the train to London and go work in an office job, give them a space to come and feel a part of something and have a collective in which they feel like they're accepted. And I said that to Jason a long time ago, that he was the first person that I ever really felt believed in me, and that cared for my future. Minus my mum and my granddad. Certainly post my dad dying when I was 12, and I met Jason when I was 16. He's the first person that told me I was okay, how I am, however you are is okay. And I still struggle with that, but to have someone and a place that exudes that energy is incredibly valuable. And I think it's amazing that's a goal of yours. And I think it'll be invaluable to your community if you can if you can realize that.
Well, the biggest thing, and I can only speak to my experiences with anything, but from what I saw around me as well, growing up in England, it's all about conditioning. As soon as you're in primary school, all right, we're just going to get through these 5 years. But then when we get to senior school, you got 8 years where you're not going to fuck up. And if you want to do this, here's what you got to do. You got to decide it at 13 years old. You got to decide at 13 years old what you're going to do. I'd been making radio demos. I knew I wanted to go. I was doing stand-up shows when I was 13, 14, 15, saying I was 17, 18 when I clearly wasn't, to play pubs and bars in and around Brighton and everything. Even though I knew I wanted to be a performer, to just bring smiles and make people laugh and speak through a microphone and talk about music and dive into that. Even when I was at school, when my parents lost everything, it was so strange that I was going to a school that specialized in performing arts, a private school, wearing my mum and my uncle's hand-me-down clothes, going to school with kids wearing Gucci and driving Minis and Bentleys as their first car. It was really flipping weird. But it was in those, I ended up working for that school for 2 years after I finished it or graduated. And those 4 years completely transformed me from being this small town guy who was quite funny and the class jokes are there, but then going up near London and being like, oh my God, I'm nothing compared to these people. The first year, not auditioning for shows, not wanting to be involved in anything. But to skim through all of that and all of that aside, and to come back to my point, which is not a negative conditioning, but an expectation. Each family's got their expectation of where you're going to go, what you're going to do. And so I was always very hesitant to, well, I don't think I want to go. I went to a few universities to look to study radio and broadcasting. I was like, I don't think I want to. We don't even have a house. I don't think I want to go and get £80,000 worth of debt right now. I think I'd rather just keep making my own shit, keep learning on my own way, try and get work experience, because I just don't, and I've never done uni or anything like that because it just didn't feel right. And every journey is going to come back in and around on its own way. And I'm just trying to now hone in on the 5 different things you inspired me to dive into, and which angle do I want to go first with that? It is so crucial to me that towns have these release and that youth has that release, because when you're 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and speaking to what you just did and what I just shared, there's so much, like I'm trying to figure out now, like my dad would say, I'm like a fart in a colander. I'm trying to figure out which hole I'm trying to come out of. And that's because I've got all these thoughts right now in this moment. But when you're a kid, that's the epitome of what many are. You're trying to gravitate towards, who am I? What do I want to do? And I don't think I want to agree that this is my fucking thing right now. And so that's why you need that chance, those stages, those centers, those spaces to go out there and do as you just said, to just try and galvanize yourself, explore yourself, let loose, make mistakes, trip, get back up again. And it blows my mind that there aren't more. I mean, it's not to say that there aren't youth clubs. There are youth clubs, but I'm talking specifically for performing arts, for musicians, for poets, for actors who can go there and put on poetry slams one night, my crazy punk band the next night, our attempt at 10-year-olds doing metal inspired by Mastodon the night after that, whatever it might be. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I was going to say is that, yeah, Tunbridge Wells is an interesting one because it's a town that is just so classically English. You know, where my sister is bought our grandparents' house in Wadhurst, you know, in and around the war, everything is big brick building. It's all bricks. It's all the walled gardens and everything to protect and keep themselves safe. So it looks at this, it's this classic English cobbled streets and beautiful brick everywhere. But there, like many parts of England and like many parts of communities on this planet, is a clear divide between the upper and the lower. And when you have these venues, it is paramount to me to bring those two worlds together. The kid that thinks that the world is just handed to him and I just got to get some grades and get this university and life's tickety-boo. And the kid that's like, I'm fighting for every fucking day. And I think it's a missed opportunity to have more of these conjoined spaces. And again, but look, I haven't lived in England for 12 years, so I don't want to step on feet and start talking to what it is over there. That's why I'm just so fascinated by what it means to you.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you summed it up much better than I did in that sense. yeah, these spaces are 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 very important to to growing up, you know, and that age, that 12, 13, 14 age period, you know, is form, you know, is incredibly formative in what um in how you then go on to look at life, how you feel about the world, and what you think is possible from your own life, you know. um yeah, it's, you know, we're I think myself very fortunate to have somewhere like that, because and we've done a tour of smaller towns, and we've done the big cities, and so many people, young people that we meet, you know, even in the bigger cities, like you said, there's 200,000 people and there's one youth center. Like, I think that kind of sums sums it up, really, isn't it? And I think, what are we talking about? We're talking about education, but really, education, worldly education, you know. Um, you know, if you haven't got alternative spaces to go to, because you feel like school doesn't, you know, do the job, doesn't represent you, or it's pushing you in a way that doesn't feel natural to you, where do you go? What else have you got? If you're not academic and you don't want to go to uni and you don't want to go and do this, you know, what else is there to do? If you don't conform, what the hell are you going to do?
Yeah.
And it gives you, you know, it gives you the space to go and work that out, um, and try and find your path. I never wanted to go to uni, and I didn't go to uni. I couldn't wait to get out of school. I couldn't wait to fuck education off and just get out there. I didn't really have any, you know, I had no dreams of becoming a professional musician even. I mean, it would always be you know, it was always in the back of my mind, but I just wanted to go and earn some money, and I wanted to meet people, and I wanted to learn stuff, and I wanted to grow, as a person. And I grew so much from that sort of, you know, from when I left school at 18 to, you know, even now, you know, it's still, I wanted to be in it, and school doesn't really prepare you to be in it. Um, it only really prepares you to tick a box. But ticking boxes only gets you so far, unless you've got some real substance to the knowledge you have. Um, and that comes from making mistakes, and that comes from being wrong, that comes from experimenting, all of which, certainly in England anyway, you're not really, that's not how it works. You study and you get the best grades possible. That means you go and study at higher education, and then, you know, you get a job in an office and become a robot.
Yeah.
I've got massive problems with the school system, and I've spoken about a little bit in infants, and individualism, actually, which is another track on the first side of the album, which is kind of a play on words in some ways, because it's individualism is kind of the philosophy behind being an individual, um, but putting the individual's needs first over community and whatnot. Um, but that song's talking about being your own person and not conforming in this ocean of conformity, I suppose, in this ocean of, being told what you've got to do and how you're going to do it. Um, you know, what is school really setting you up for? Is it really within their interests for you to question all of that? I'm not sure it is. I think they just want you to be an effective worker when you finally go out and get a job, you know, to, you know, contribute to society, pay your taxes, and shut the hell up while they get on with what they want, whoever they are, government at the time, or anybody, large business owners, multimillionaires, billionaires, corporations. it's not within their interest for you to question that. And I think that's what school does. I heard an interesting analogy once that was that, you know, you ask a 5-year-old to write a story and it'll be crazy. It'll be absolutely wild. You know, a child's imagination is so fruitful, and so experimental, and you know, they're not really scared of getting anything wrong and or doing anything right or trying to tick any of these boxes. You know, and then you ask a teenager who's been in sort of, you know, mainstream education for the last 10 years to write a story. And you know, I'm generalizing massively here, but you know, a lot of creativity is sucked out within the education system. People's, you know, it's not necessarily encouraged. I think even the way that music and the creative arts is taught, again, kind of is more interested in ticking boxes than it is actually really getting you to question any of it. You know, these are the rules. This is Bach. This is Beethoven, and you know, whatever. But you know, they want you to make music and learn how to record, but they're not asking you big questions. And what songs are you going to write about? What are you going to talk about? What do you want to get out of this? You know, that's never a conversation while in education. And again, you know, that then comes back to these community spaces, and there are no rules there. That was, you know, the only rule is that if you engage, you'll get something out of it, you know. And that's why these places are so important. And I cherish Forum very dearly. I don't cherish school.
Yeah. That reminds me of when I was a kid, and my little brother and I, when he came along, we would destroy the house, would peel off all the wallpaper, would scuff up the walls. I remember Mum saying to me one day, look, this is the room where you can do whatever you want. I don't care what you do in here. I don't care if you shred it, paint it, draw on it, throw apple juice out the wall, whatever. This is your room and you can do it here. But please just leave the living room alone. You can explore yourself in this room. Just please leave the wallpaper alone, because, you know, what I don't know is at the time, my parents were living off of £18 a week to keep the business going, paying everyone else around them. And there's me, my sister, my brother, the 3 dogs. And I'm not realizing that, you know, the meals I don't eat because I'm full or don't want it, or the wallpaper I'm pulling down, the ramifications of it. And that all speaks to the delicate balance of communication, what you share, what you don't share. That's what I've learned a lot about with Jodie's teachings and how she's being a parent to Harley, my partner. That is, for those that have recently joined or don't even know who I'm talking about. And this is the thing that blows my mind, is how I think back to a kid and the amount of times it was, no, we can't discuss. No, we're not going to do that here. And then the impact it makes on you as a kid going, oh, am I not trusted? Am I not seen? Am I not, what do you want me to, should I run away? What is this? Why can't you speak about this around me? And that's what's been so refreshing with Jodie and Harley, is that I'm not, I've got a lot in common with my dad. I was told, I was diagnosed bipolar 2 when I was 23, and I don't really mention it too much anymore, because that was a title, yes, but I feel that it's shape-shifting. We'll go back to that word, right? I've learned so much about the intricacies of how the dark starts that I wouldn't classify myself as that necessarily, more as maybe a manic depressive, and that goes through really thick. But I mean, my mood, and people, Jodie knows, those that have supported me for 12 years on the radio here and broadcasting, they know, because I'm an open book. Like the light switch flicks and I might be in the dumps, and then the light flick switches and I'm moving at 400 miles per hour, you know, rattling off Robin Williams and Jim Carrey impressions and jokes, and where did this change come from? But the wonderful thing about that is, and I was in floods of tears when the first time that this happened with Harley, is I was like, yo, I've been so in my head for a few days about, am I a failure? You know, am I failing these two that I love? Am I failing myself? Was it right to walk away from the commercial cushy job? Well, no, I don't like the message some of the people had there. I don't like the small-mindedness when we're talking to being at school, and is it UCAS or whatever? I can't remember, all those years ago. And really what everything ultimately boils down to is the select few that decide for the masses what the yes or no is. And so this reminds me of the instance of peeling off the wallpaper and my mum saying, this is your room to create and do what you want and discover you. This reminds me of taking French GCSE and Mr. North having us do the exams for French GCSE of 1999 when it was 2002 or whatever it was. And the whole class failed because we were all taking a syllabus that was out of date, but no one thought to mark and say, well, the poor kids, this might affect their future. Maybe we'll grade it back then and it is, but the highest we'll give you is a B. No, the whole class failed. And it was all quite funny. It reminds me of that. It reminds me of how so few can depict how you go about your life and how you live. And what I love about people is that those that aren't afraid to share the context. And I'm not saying that we speak to Harley and say, look, I'm really fucking scared because I'm going to fail, blah, 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 blah. But still sharing that, look, I'm just having a down day. I'm having a day where I'm beating myself up over not getting all this work done. And I've got a list that's too long. And what am I going to do, though? I'm going to make a shorter list. I'm going to discuss it, but go for a walk, whatever, discuss with myself, try and chill out and ground. And it's so delicate and it blows my mind.
I'm sure Harley has an amazing insight. I think the fact that we don't trust children to have an insight and a natural intuition towards a situation. They're not grown; they're very young people. But why not ask the opinion? See what they think.
Well, and
might have a perspective, might have had an angle that you'd never considered.
Well, that's happened many times. There's been many times where he'll walk into the room and he'll be like, okay, John, as I'm affectionately known, is sat at his computer pulling his hair out. He's probably not got everything done on the list today. So he comes over, gives a hug, and how was your day? And then clicks into, he and I are very similar. He loves to entertain and jester, and when he senses someone's down, he's not going to force you to be at his energy, but he's going to damn well show you what a good time is. And so whether he's grabbing a hockey stick or the football or whatever it might be, and Pokemon cards, and I'm going to be this and tell jokes, and it's very powerful. It is very powerful. But I actually, before we get too far away from it, I wouldn't mind playing a bit of Infants if you're down to hear yourself for a second, just to give some context around
absolutely.
it. I mean,
do it.
You've supplied the context, and we'll play to those that haven't heard it or that have and can hear it again. Joe. There we go. That's a bit of infants. Oh, let me play the last crash symbol as you paused in the car there. I scared the shit out of the cat that's sleeping by me on the desk. I don't know if you can see me.
What the hell are you doing, John?
What are you doing?
What's that? Turn that off.
No, it's great. He does judge a lot of music, but he stays around for the punk and the metal.
Great.
As soon as something a bit more genteel comes on, I shit you not, because I listen to things way too loud. He'll get up and go and do like that, like the whole arch, like he's a witch, and then jumps down. But I came down this morning. Are you yawning? Thank you. Oh yes, lovely. I came down this morning and he'd thrown up all over my Rodecaster Pro. Oh.
Beautiful.
Nice big hairball in the fucking sound card that I just got fixed and was away for 6 weeks.
No.
No, it works fine.
Nightmare. Just a little, John, about 10 minutes I've got to probably have to shoot, unfortunately.
No, not at all. You've been
enjoying this conversation immensely.
We've been chatting for an hour and a half. It's nearly 8 p.m. You had to drive somewhere. You told me that.
I just looked at the time and I was like, oh my God.
No, I actually only had one thing left to touch on, and I'd love to do this again and get Mr. Teacher Man, Sam, Don, and Joe involved as well. But something that intrigued me a lot is that gap between where Don / Sam / Mr. Teacher Man had lost his voice, and I'd read in an interview, and pardon me, which one was it? I don't know if it was this the Mike, I think it was University of Nottingham's one that you did, or if it was the Fred Perry chat that you did, but what happened? And that's so fascinating that you decided to you all just jumped on vocals?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing the majority of the vocals. Joe was doing a couple of songs. We actually did our first London headline with me singing the vocals. It was just around the time the vinyl release of Social Potions was coming out, and it was being on all the streaming services. It was it was psychological in the end. It turned out to be kind of a physical reaction to a psychological problem, and he just had immense sort of tension, and basically he said that any time he was speaking, it felt like someone was stabbing him in the throat. There was daggers in his throat. I mean, you'd have to speak to him for more details on that. But
for your journey, had you sang before at this point?
Not really, no.
Because it's quite something going from that. I know I'm talking over you, but I will shut up after this. But it's quite a difference in shift to go from being the guitar player and then fronting a punk band with this much energy and veracity of the lyrical content. That's a huge shift.
No, yeah, absolutely. It was definitely new to me. I mean, it's very nice that in the recording process, Sam was like, I wanted to do Infants, and I relished it, and that was actually the first and only take I did of the vocals.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Same as the music video. I'm just gonna fucking start now. The music's playing.
Yeah.
Sorry, the visualizer. Yeah.
Yeah, the visualizer. Yeah. The management didn't want to put it out as a music video.
I love that shit.
So it was the visualizer. And that was actually made in kind of similar ilk to the way that the vocals recorded, and actually kind of how the song was written. We were just on tour in a car park, and I just said, right, grab your little tiny little like self cam thing, and off we went and did that. Anyway, that's a tangent. It was a massive step, but I kind of relished it. I remember kind of relishing it and enjoying the challenge. And I can sing, and sometimes I think I've got quite a nice voice, but it's not really kind of singing in the same way. And actually, I really enjoyed being able to be aggressive. In a safe way, and I've got a lot of struggles with anger and aggression in my life, and that's come from my dad dying way back when. and probably a sense of trying to be heard or be respected or be understood, which maybe doesn't make a lot of sense to some people, but it just seems to be my go-to. So yeah, I kind of relished it. I kind of enjoyed it. I can be quite an anxious person, but I also kind of like being the centre of attention as well. So
I feel you on that big time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of, yeah, I mean, it was a very difficult time for Sam, and hence difficult time for us. And back to what I said earlier, bands generally seem to be on a knife edge, and it could fall either way any given moment. And that's another example. And I kind of almost forget that happens, you know. How are we going to fucking make this band work? Like, how are we going to move forward? And you know, play the shows that we said we were going to play, and still get by. We managed it. Sam eventually went on holiday with his wife and some friends, and he was basically down to like a minute in every hour of speaking. And his wife basically just told him, "You've got to speak. You have to speak." Basically just didn't give him a choice anymore. So he did. And as he relaxed on the holiday and felt better and less anxious about everything, it came back and he was speaking with no pain. So really fascinating case of your physical being representing your mental state in that sense. Yeah, really interesting that you can feel pain. You can. Sorry, it's my friend.
You are, mate.
You can feel. Yeah, you can feel pain. That's not actually there. You know, he did have an operation. He did have a polyp, and that's kind of where it started. He kind of had this this fixation on the fact that there's something wrong with his voice, and the more that he thought there was wrong with it, the less he could relax, the tenser he got, the worse the pain got, the more stress he got, and you know, snowball effects. And he suffered with, you know, major panic attacks for a while, and then eventually overcame it, you know, and you know, resumed his place as the rightful singer of Ladybird. I'm very grateful for him for, you know, pushing me to sing in Prince.
Yeah, I think that is a really powerful way to close this out, because that energy is what has spoken to me for the last 3-4 years since I discovered you. Is that transparency without even having said that in songs and addressed that in songs. You can feel that energy. I used to think that energy was bullshit, but once ever since that day when I was a kid, I've always felt very dark energy. So if I'm out getting groceries, going shopping, again, big difference. If I'm out in the world on a bus getting groceries, whatever it might be, and I feel like, oh, there's something dark here, what I used to do was run away from it. Now I try and find it and locate it in that store. And then in that instant, I know, okay, how am I going to jive with this? I'll just go this way, or I'll stay close, whatever it might be. But those two shares there are a massive part of what speaks to me in what I love about this band, your band, the band that you're in, the voice you have, the ability that you have, is that you looked at these chances to shut it down and fuck it, and the whole world's going to crumble on itself. We're done. But you didn't. You pushed yourself to learn a new skill, to find new solidarity and grounding and respect for yourself. He found a way to push himself through the thick and the sludge to get to that next step. That is what breathes into music that in turn galvanizes people like me and consumers all over this planet. And that's the unidentifiable energy in a creation that people connect with and sometimes have no idea why. And you'll hear people say, oh, we just don't want to explain the song context because we want to alleviate anyone forming a narrative. We want to actually leave them to build their narrative. We don't want to have that space here. So that's why there's never a wrong answer when someone shares what the song's about or doesn't. In this case, we've not really focused on anything in particular until the last 20 minutes. It's all of that. That's what I love about this, away from the mainstream radio where it's 10 minutes, 3 questions. You can't ask this, you can't do that. I'm just more interested in the fucking human soul behind it. Those answers will come in a whole different way. And so,
Mm.
Alex, this has been a real delight, man. It's been a pleasure to speak with you for
Same
the
here,
last hour and a
brother.
half. It really has.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much for having me. It's given me a lot of energy and belief and desire to keep moving forward and doing what we're doing. I think you're very inspiring. I think your dreams and the things you're looking to do are amazing. I hope you can find a way to create a physical space for the young people of the island, as you called it.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, I look forward to speaking to you again, man. I'd love to come back, and I'd love to continue this conversation, and hopefully have some more stuff to talk about next time.
No, we
as
will.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. The next plan for me, and cognizant you've got to go as of 3 minutes ago, is that once I've gone through multiple chats, I'd like to start connecting the dots with bands from around the world when the world opens up a bit more, so that you've got, oh, I could work with this band in Canada, I could work with this band in LA, I could work with this band in South Africa. I'm just trying to build community, and at the same point, you need to know how inspiring this is for me. And my partner Jody, who just said this has been so awesome, so powerful, will hold testament to the fact that I get such an energy boost from these conversations, because we are both grinding out our art in our own way, trying to build community in our way, trying to just constantly, we're working on that knife edge of what the fuck are we doing? And it's these moments, that really solidify, oh no, I do know who I am. I do know what I want to do. And all that in between, the unknown, I'm not scared of. We will keep driving through it. So you've got to go and get dinner or drive or go somewhere.
You, brother.
You know, you've got to get out of here. Otherwise we will never stop, but we will talk again. And Alex, thank you. I appreciate it.
I love you, John. I love you, John.
Much love to you.
We'll speak soon.
See you,
if
mate.
I could give you a hug, I would. Maybe one day we will be together.
Yeah.
And we can hang out.
Awesome, man. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
Wicked. Much love, brother. I'll catch you soon.
See you in a bit.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
How powerful was that? I am on cloud flipping 9. That is the kind of conversation that just galvanizes me in a way of which is hard to put in words. It's like I just licked 1,000 batteries, you know? Let's go. Let's crush it. Sorry, Theo. Sorry. The cat just gave me the... You're like borderline crazy right now. What are you doing? I'm just really psyched and excited. Sorry that I scared you off of your nest. Anyway, thanks for being here. And whatever you're doing with the rest of your day, so excited, slow it down. Whatever you are doing with the rest of this day, please and as always, look after yourself. And I hope there's some fun and smiles involved in the rest of it too, because we've got to cherish that positive. I like that. As I keep saying this now, I'm like creating a dance. Cherish that positive. Cheerio.